Hi everyone, I'm Jackie Padilla from NowThis News, and today I'm so honored to be joined by Lieutenant Colonel retired Ann Murdoch, who is the president of the Transgender American Veterans Association. And thank you so much for joining me today. I think it's so important that we're here to chat, especially coming up on the 4th of July weekend.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me to be on with you.
So tell me a little bit about TAVA, what this organization is, and why it's especially important right now in 2020.
Well, TAVA is the Transgender American Veterans Association, of course, and we represent veterans of the U.S. military services that identify as transgender, and that could be anywhere on the spectrum from non-binary, gender fluid, transgender, anything on the spectrum. And we have basically a threefold mission. So we advocate for our members, we advocate for the rights and the equality of transgender service members, especially with the Department of Veteran Affairs, things like that. We provide a sense of community for our members, so we want to be able to have a place where we can go and talk to each other with people that really kind of understand each other. And then we want to help those trans veterans that are in need. So, of course, trans people in general face great challenges, and then a lot of veterans have experienced things that really cause them a lot of difficulty later on in life. So we want to be able to help people navigate the VA system and just give them the support that they need to thrive.
Well, again, I know I spoke with you earlier today, but thank you for your service and also continuing your advocacy with this organization. It's clearly very important, and I think too often underreported. But I thought that it was fitting leading up to this patriotic holiday to make sure that we're recognizing that there's still a lot of challenges the LGBTQ community and the transgender community still have to overcome, especially in the military. And what I thought was interesting from our conversation a little earlier was, you mentioned that before we start, trying to update historic texts or mandates, we still got to follow the initial rules that have been set by our founding fathers long ago. There's conversation about rewriting the Constitution or adding amendments or editing things that are out of context. But you're saying that we're not even following the ground rules that were set in the first place.
Well, the 4th of July celebrates the signing of the Declaration of Independence, which was the kickoff of the American Revolution. And in the Declaration of Independence, we say that everybody is equal, and everybody has the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that government is intended to provide that for people and help safeguard that for people. And we're seeing today that that is not true for all Americans, and we need to work to make sure that every American can fulfill that dream, the original vision of the Declaration of Independence, that we all can have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Would you mind just telling me a little bit of your experience when you were serving, which was for quite some time? I know you retired in 2013. What differences did you see when you started in 1988 to the 2000s? And, you would think a lot of pivotal change would happen, but we're not seeing it as swiftly as I'm sure we need it to be.
Yeah, I was served for 24 years from 1988 to 2013, and a lot did change. A lot stays the same. Some of the things that stay the same are good, and some of the things need to be updated. When I originally enlisted, I had to sign a statement saying that I had not engaged in homosexual conduct, and that was a bar to service. People were actually investigated and separated from service if they were gay or had engaged in what they considered homosexual conduct. When Don't Ask, Don't Tell was enacted, that seemed like an improvement. It seemed like a stepping stone on the way towards full service for everybody. It took a long time for Don't Ask, Don't Tell to be repealed for us to finally make that leap where everybody can serve and be treated equally on the basis of sexual orientation. It was tough for me sitting on the sidelines thinking, but not me. I can't be open. I can't be out of the closet. because at that time, gender dysphoria was considered a medically disqualifying condition. The language in the Federal Code of Regulations was very, very discriminatory and derogatory and outdated, and it was just really painful to even look at it. And it wasn't until after I retired where that was relooked, and for a brief time, trans people could serve openly in the military. It really put some of the service members who came out during that time into a bad position when that provision was later repealed by executive order.
Why did you still want to serve for and protect a nation whose leaders don't necessarily want to do everything in their power to protect you and protect other trans service members?
Well, there's a combination of things. For a long time, just in society in general, transition didn't seem like a possibility for me. So I made the best of what I had. I really valued the relationships that I formed in the military. I was treated with a lot of respect and dignity from the very first day, even though I was a very low-ranking soldier, on through the time that I retired as a senior officer. I loved the sense of camaraderie, the variety and the challenge, and I really feel that we were doing some good things. Some would definitely disagree, but for instance, in Afghanistan, when the Taliban rocketed a school and there's children and teachers that were on the verge of dying, only the U.S. military had the capability to go in there and help those people. When there's an earthquake in Pakistan, only the U.S. military had the ability to go in there with helicopters and medical assets and help them. We were trying to stand up for people that were just trying to live their lives against an oppressive regime. Certainly very imperfect accomplishment of that. It's an extremely challenging situation under any circumstances and any kind of conflict. There's a lot of gray areas and moral tough choices, but I really felt like I was making a positive difference. And in my last assignment at the Pentagon as Chief of Officer Succession Policy, I had the privilege of updating 7 Army regulations when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed. So that was very, very gratifying to be part of the change and making that institution a better place than it was when I got there.
And, the organization TAVA is doing great advocacy work. But how does it feel when you have these wins? We had the Affordable Care Act that under the Obama administration had ensured that non-discrimination covered LGBTQ plus individuals and anyone who identified as transgender, which now that clause, that specification has been rolled back. So it seems like you get a win and then we see it get retracted. How do you learn from this? And then how do we ensure that we can roll it back and then make sure that it's instilled and laid in concrete like every other amendment we're seeing or any other protocol we seem to follow more loyally?
Well, it's of course it's heartbreaking when you have those setbacks like that. It's really tough to deal with. But just like in the military, there's advances, there's wins, and then there's setbacks and there's losses. And you don't get to really feel sorry for yourself about the setbacks. You just have to get to work. You have to fight. It hurts, and it's very tempting to just want to throw up your hands or go hide or move somewhere else. But that's not really an option. So we have to keep fighting. We have to keep working for it. As far as how to get that cemented into place, obviously it's already in legislation. That's a huge part of it. A lot of that is going to determine or rest on court cases and Supreme Court decisions. So I'm personally optimistic about that. I don't see how you can just arbitrarily deny health care for certain conditions based off of who somebody is or political whims where it might make some other group uncomfortable. It has to be fair. It has to be equal. So I think the legislative part of it is really important. We have to elect leaders that are going to support that and support equality Constitution as a possibility, that would be certainly one way to actually guarantee that once and for all.
And aside from the fact of just blatantly ignoring, human rights and human decency, what other damaging outcomes could come from being able to, refuse care to somebody who might immediately need it, especially a transgender veteran who might need some sort of assistance? What outcomes and snowball effect could that create?
Just a lot of really bad outcomes. It's hard to imagine where, how far it could go if you could arbitrarily discriminate against people on healthcare. I know a parent whose son was denied treatment for a broken arm. She had a trans son. They were stationed in Germany. The father was stationed in Germany. The family was there with them. They were denied treatment for their son's broken arm because the German authorities erroneously thought that because the kid was trans, they couldn't get health care. They wouldn't be covered under TRICARE. That's just one real life example. You could be turned away for anything, life-saving care, treatment. And we're in the middle of a pandemic. You could be turned away for testing. You could be turned away for treatment, all those things. And then there is the arbitrary discrimination against trans-specific health care, particularly surgery, which many studies, plenty of data show that is life-saving. Medical treatment for trans people is medically necessary treatment. It's been deemed that by all reputable healthcare organizations, by the American Medical Association, by all major psychiatric associations, and statistically it's shown it saves lives. The suicide attempt rate for trans people is about 40%, and I personally don't know a single trans person that doesn't have a suicide story. The dysphoria just gets so bad. And for a lot of people, it's actually a minority of trans people, but for a lot, medical interventions are a very important piece of coming to terms with the gender dysphoria, and surgery is an important piece of that for many, many people. To deny that is just cruel.
So on the flip side, what positives would we see if we began implementing a space where the transgender veterans and service people could come out openly, know that they're going to serve without any pushback or discrimination or any setbacks? What transformation would we see with the American military and how we are dealing with any foreign affairs if we provided an equal playing field?
We are seeing that right now with the trans service members that are out, that came out under the Obama administration. They're performing to such a high standard of professionalism and accomplishment. It just really makes me so proud of them. It is so exciting. They faced adversity and challenge and just degradation, and they met that with the utmost level of performance and professionalism, and letting their work and their accomplishments speak for themselves and really just prove that trans people don't have a place in the U.S. military. And what it would have meant for me, I held back on my military career. I achieved a lot. I earned a Legion of Merit, a Bronze Star, and multiple other awards I'm wearing right now. I got promoted and got a lot of really exciting, challenging assignments, but I could have done so much more had I not been afraid all the time, every hour of every day of being discovered and facing repercussions, and just the shame and the guilt of hiding who I was toxic, and it took so much mental energy away. And now I just have so much more available. And if I didn't have lived like that during my entire military career, I mean, there's no telling what more I could have accomplished, what more I could have contributed. And to make people free and open and comfortable, not just trans people, but anybody, that they could just be themselves, does so much. It builds tighter teams. It leads to greater productivity. It leads to less problems, disciplinary problems, and things like that. There's really no downside to it whatsoever, except some people's intolerance and bigotry. So we could open up all that with the stroke of a pen.
So what can an everyday civilian citizen do to help be a better ally and to ensure that we're advocating properly for trans veterans and trans service people? Is it, calling out our local leaders? Is it sparking good, productive dialogue? What can we do at home?
It's all those things. I think, first of all, the fundamentals of just advocacy for equality and for fairness and for justice for all groups is the foundation, and that's the start point. So whether you're marching for Black Lives Matter or marching to keep families together at the immigration centers and keep kids out of cages, where you're marching for gay rights or women's rights or whatever cause in the realm of equality that you're advocating for, that is a great place to start, and that's the foundation. Because as it's been well said, if one person's not equal, none of us are equal. So we've got to start there. I think for trans people, more specifically, we need health care. We need protection so we don't get fired from jobs just for being who we are. We need to be able to be confident that we're not going to get kicked out of housing. And I know people that have been fired for their jobs and run out of their jobs because they're trans, and have been forced to leave housing because they're trans for no other reason. And then we need full access to health care, not only just for trans-specific health care, but we have to be assured that if we call 911 for a heart attack or a car accident, or we get cancer or something like that, that we'll still get treated and won't be discriminated. So we have to have that protection, and we need people to advocate for that. There's discrimination on the local, city, state, and federal level in different places, and it's important to be engaged in all those areas. We had many, really just, I sobbed through some of the Fairfax County School Board meetings when some of the far-right groups were just putting out these lies and propaganda against trans people, and just it broke my heart thinking about what those kids would have to face if they weren't just allowed to be free. And fortunately, we had a lot of allies, and we were able to change the composition of the school board. But it's just that example. Sometimes it's on the local level. It's important to be engaged on the state level. It took Virginia years and years and years, but we finally got LGBT Equality Act passed just this year. So a lot of great progress, but it took grassroots effort, not just for the LGBT community, but our allies. So it's important to be engaged. You can see your state representatives face to face. It's not that hard to do. So you can write letters and communicate and go and lobby in person. Get involved at the federal level. Get to know your congressperson, and if you can, your state or your senators. Average everyday citizens can get to see their elected representatives, especially if you're part of a group, and your voices will be heard, and they do pay attention. So it's really important, if you have the means to donate financially to advocacy groups or to political campaigns, things like that. That's super important. But the main thing is to use your voice and make sure it's heard by elected officials.
And as we go into the holiday weekend for the 4th of July, what's important for us to keep in the forefront? I think it's easy to say that we're going to honor our troops and we're going to salute them and thank them for their service, but what's the true meaning of this holiday for you, and something that you'd like people to reflect on over the weekend and all year?
Well, no group has a corner on patriotism. And just because you wrap yourself in red, white, and blue and stars and stripes doesn't mean you're really a patriot. In my opinion, patriots are the people that really put themselves into this country and make a sacrifice for this nation, whether it's in uniform, whether it's in military service, or whether it's advocating for equality or just trying to make this country a better place. It's about looking out for each other. So I think we all have a place at the table. Nobody is excluded because of who they are, and nobody fought for just one group's rights or another group's rights. Those of us who served in uniform fought for everybody's rights, for every person in this country, and to make sure that the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution really means something, that we can live up to those lofty ideals, and that we all have a place at the table.
Well, I want to thank you again for taking time to chat with me about this. I think this is certainly a critical conversation, like I said, not only to have this week, but all the time, every day, and to have a mindful reflection of who is protecting and serving this country. So thank you again for your service and for taking time to chat with me today. I appreciate it.
Well, great. Thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
And, following this great conversation I've had with you about trans veterans and service members in the U.S. military, this upcoming weekend, we want to make sure that we're celebrating the 4th of July, but we also want to make sure that we're focusing on the Black Lives Matter movement and the work that we all need to put in to dismantle systemic racism. Our partners at the Ad Council, who we've collaborated with on this weekly live stream series, have created a new PSA for their Love Has No Labels campaign, which addresses the very question of freedom in America. So we'll close this discussion with that video.